This is the story of the Studebaker engine rebuild for the Chamberlin sawmill. I first learned about the Chamberlin Mill at Celebrating Agriculture in September of 2013. The idea of restoring a historic sawmill was very interesting, and I wanted to get involved. I've spent several years as a volunteer at the Mystic Seaport Museum restoring antique marine engines. I thought the Studebaker looked like it could be restored to working condition. It appeared to be all there and mostly complete, unlike many of the projects that we work on. With that in mind, I approached the Seaport management and asked if we could take on a project for another museum. They were agreeable, provided that it was an all-volunteer effort and we supplied all parts and supplies. The Chamberlain Mill Board of Directors was also agreeable, and off we went. After many years of disuse, this is how the Studebaker power plant looked. The shed that had covered it had fallen away and the foundation had collapsed. This is my favorite picture of the engine and the building. It shows how much needed to be done for the restoration. After cleaning out the mill, the Studebaker was stored at a local farm. This is how it looked the day we picked it up to begin work on the rebuild. This was my first actual view of the power plant, but it looked the way I expected. After removing the engine from the frame, we took it to the Mystic Seaport Antique Car Show to introduce the Chamberlin Mill and to an interested audience. From this first showing, we found many contributors and helpful contacts that are still giving us help and valuable contributions. We've been back every year since to show the progress we've made and to keep promoting the Chamberlin Mill. There seems to be a continuing interest in our project. After the car show, we began the disassembly of the engine. It was pretty rusty, inside and out. Some parts came apart harder than others. We needed to even destroy some pieces. After we got it completely apart, we pressure washed the block. This is being done on the lift dock. All of the dirty water is collected in a sump and then taken away to a waste facility to be processed. Mystic Seaport is very careful to protect the water and the environment around the museum. This is the result of the final cleaning before sending it to a machine shop to have the cylinders bored out and the valve seats machined. Since it's an antique car engine, reproduction parts are available as needed. Unlike many of the marine engines we work on, where you have to make your own parts. Jim Cream was my mentor all through this project. He's been in the car business all his life, and we owe him a debt of gratitude. This is one of the many contributions that we received throughout the rebuild. I tried to salvage as many of the original parts as possible to try to keep the cost down. But often other volunteers told me, don't skimp, I'll buy new, whatever, to make this right. This is the final assembly, getting ready to start up for the first. This is more of the final prep just before the first startup. At the end of its running life, the foundation had sagged and didn't support the engine as well as needed. This resulted in a cracked frame and a broken transmission, so it was necessary to straighten and weld the frame as well as replace the transmission. The frame was taken away by another volunteer and brought back sandblasted and painted. At the first car show where we displayed the engine, we met an antique car collector from New Hampshire who said he had a parts car that he would donate. It turned out that not only was he interested in old cars, but he was interested in old mills and industrial history. From this parts car, we were able to get the transmission and other parts that we needed to replace the ones that had been broken. We were able to host an early showing of the running engine at a celebration for the Chamberlin Mill members and supporters. Bob Valpy, our donor friend, got to see the engine running. The restored engine and frame returned to the mill ready for the next phase of the mill restoration. The mill had no water power after the flood in 1936. When the hurricane in 1938 occurred, the government stepped in and formed the New England Lumber Salvage Association, NELSA. There was a recognition that this was an economic disaster as well as a fire hazard. So NELSA bought the saw logs and rented ponds to store the softwood logs to prevent the borers from ruining them. They also rented fields to store the hardwood logs and began to pay sawmills to cut the lumber. We believe this is what got the Chamberlin Mill back in operation. Keach Pond, which had supplied the water power for the mill, now became a source of logs only 200 feet away. So now there was a source of logs and a waiting customer for the lumber. As the cleanup began, roads had to be cleared and logs moved to the storage areas. Each pond with softwood logs stored to prevent the borer damage, the insect damage. This is looking north from the dam. This is someone named Charlie Noren, courtesy of the Woodstock Historical Society. This is the mill back in operation with the Studebaker shed under construction in 1939. And this is the revived sawmill back in operation sometime in the 1940s. This is to be continued.